Think we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys may be. Welcome to Coding After 30, where we talk about stuff and drink coffee. In today's video, I want to talk about the web development roadmap and how to create your own, so you're just not randomly learning stuff, but you have some sort of path and have some sort of direction. The reason I say this is because in my journey, I definitely spent a lot of time learning the wrong thing that would have cost me a lot of progress. But before we continue, let me know if my audio is working, if you could hear me, see me, if the music is not too loud or just perfect. And we got Lucky's, he's ready. I think I'm ready too. Alex, what's up? He says hi, good morning. Lots of handshakes all around. Yeah, so in today's video, I just want to talk about, not even so much, like we're definitely going to talk about how to create or find your own curriculum. And I'm going to kind of show you some examples of the resources I use to help me out. And we're going to kind of, instead of just doing the topic that I like, maybe we'll do some random ones. Maybe we'll see like what are suggestions you guys have, and we'll do that. I think that'll be great. Seriously, Andrew, like I was like, man, I'm drinking coffee at 7. You got me in trouble because my fiance is on, and she also probably wondering why am I drinking coffee at 7. Hey Aria, this is not coffee, this is tea, sleepy time tea, so I could go to sleep on time. But that's the way it is. Brian, what's up? Sounds good. Dan, what's up? Yeah, we're doing good. Gonna have fun. We're gonna talk about a couple of different ways you guys could come up with your own web development roadmap. And I think there's so many videos on YouTube where everybody's like, yeah, roadmap 2021 or roadmap 2022. And then they go ahead and name every possible technology in the world, and you're like, how am I supposed to learn all this stuff? So today we're going to just talk about whatever the journey is for you. How do you find out your own topics, and how do you create your curriculum as if you were in college, or as if you were going to a boot camp, or just so you have a plan to be able to do the things that you need to do in order to move forward. You know what I'm saying? Because the biggest thing, because I talk to so many people and they always ask me like, well, maybe I should learn PHP, maybe I should learn Python, maybe I should learn insert technology name here, or do I need to learn D3, or do I need to do this? And I think when I hear stuff like that, I just assume that the person that's asking these questions, they haven't figured out what it is they want to do, and their plan or their goal is not specific enough that they know what they should be studying. And hopefully we're gonna answer some of those questions today, but definitely would like to hear your suggestions and your opinions, because this YouTube channel is not just for me to talk about random stuff, but it's for us to have a communication and provide value to everybody, including me. So that's what we are. And it's okay, Andrew. She knows that I drink coffee late at night. It just is what it is. 2 a.m. where I'm from, and just finished my coffee. Fantastic, right? That's what we do here. And I did say it first, learning night. Yeah, last night I spent forever, and the night before, because I decided before we get to the main topic, I decided that like I need to practice some more JavaScript. And like I know everybody does like this 100 days of code. I think it's good because it's this constant, like on Twitter. I'm bad on Twitter. Like I got Twitter because apparently a lot of people are on Twitter that talk about tech stuff. And so I have to get on Twitter. But I was like, you know what? I need to code even more and practice daily. Not only like I write React basically at work, you know, so I probably spend 80% of my time in React world, and I'm realizing that it's very easy to kind of use React as a crutch to be able to make complex applications, because it does make it easier. That sometimes we forget to spend enough time in vanilla JavaScript. So I started kind of like basically making sure that I force myself to do some basic JavaScript. So I just want to, before we get into the topic at hand, while more people jump in, I just want to show you kind of like what I've been doing. So I decided that like the best place to kind of try stuff out and not really commit, but at the same time do some projects. Like I just use CodePen. A lot of people, you know, they're like, CodePen, you can't build massive things in CodePen. And that's the whole point. I don't want to build anything massive in CodePen. I just want to try some stuff out and be like, okay, cool, I get this. So I literally was like, I need to do more JavaScript. So before we get into a topic at hand, like how to create your curriculum, let me show you what I've been doing. Just randomly share it with you guys because I think it's great. And you know, Alex agreeing, this is why I got Twitter, because of so many tech people. But what I started to do basically is when I'm bored, or maybe when I'm not even motivated to code. By the way, sometimes you have times where you're not motivated at all. You're like, I don't want to code today. So I'm like, okay, maybe don't code on your big project. Maybe don't code on, like, take a break by doing something simple and coding in CodePen. Web Dev Junkie is here. By the way, he had an amazing live stream today. Really good, useful JavaScript tips. So if you guys don't or haven't subscribed to Web Dev Junkie, go check him out. He's an amazing dude, like just phenomenal guy, really friendly, very nice, and really enjoyed his live stream today. Talked a lot about a lot of JavaScript stuff, which was great. So it's always great to have you stop by and say hello. We appreciate you, my man. But so I started kind of like, I'm like, damn, I need to practice more JavaScript. I talk because like React, I could probably build whatever in React, but JavaScript, not so much. So I randomly was like, I want to somehow create a grid in CSS and use JavaScript to kind of make it do stuff. Like, I don't know, this is not impressive at all, but I was like, if I were to do this with grid, how would I do that? And so I was like, oh, maybe I could have an array that represents the shape. And then I was like, maybe if I have an array of arrays and I could loop through it somehow, and that will animate the little doohickey. And I was like, I could then create these fancy looking animations. I mean, this is completely pointless, except the fact that I got to practice using multi-dimensional arrays, and I got to practice looping through multi-dimensional arrays. And before I used to use for loop, and I think it's still more appropriate, but I decided this time around to go with for each. But then I was like, hey, if I could represent anything with these multi-dimensional arrays, maybe I could actually make some numbers. And so I was like, okay, let me make a random number generator that utilizes kind of what I did before, where I'm able to pass this multi-dimensional array. And then I was like, wait, well, since I'm already showing numbers, I wonder if I could make like one of those clocks. And so here's my attempt to make a clock, and these numbers I generated by these multi-dimensional arrays, and I basically created a 0 representation, and then I mapped it to 0 and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and so on. And then basically what I ended up doing is, I'm not gonna bore you with all this code, but instead of just kind of like having just a simple show, I was like showing the clock, I'm like, let me make a digital version of it, like a digital clock from 1980s, I guess. And then basically I just mapped each, you know, part of the hour or minutes to seconds. And every time, you know, 1 is 1, it will map to the multi-dimensional array. So if it's 1, it will show this, which will make the 1 using CSS grid. So anyway, the point is this is just get off your butt and to make something, even if it's something stupid. Now, like, I probably wouldn't make a game, but like I still want to make sure that I get to practice some of these methods like working with multi-dimensional arrays, this concept of creating maps with objects, practicing how to iterate using for each, using functions, while, how to render their stuff to the DOM. And so like all this stuff that's in this example is actually same stuff you would be using for web development as well. So I think, and this was nice because like I just ended up doing some code even when I didn't feel about it. Anyway, enough like talking about that, because I do want to talk about the main topic. I just wanted to, before I hit the main topic, I just wanted to get a bunch more people show up, which is hilarious. Like a second ago, I had 15 people on, and as soon as I showed this example, they all left, which is hilarious to me, because we're not just going to be looking at code all day. That's on a Tuesday night stream. But today we're going to talk about how to create your own roadmap and curriculum for what to study so you could one day get a job. But before we do that, and then he said, Web Dev Jack says that this reminds him of Conway's Game of Life. I don't know if I played that one. Andrew said, ever think about diving into HTML canvas with JavaScript to create animations? The first great example made me think of all the cool stuff you can do with that. Yeah, like I don't really, like I think, like I don't want to get too far out of the web dev world. So in terms of Canvas, I think it's great. And there's certain particular issues that Canvas solves for web dev stuff. But a lot of times, mostly people use it for games and all this other stuff. So I don't really experiment or play with Canvas, because if I were to do it, I would want it to be in context of web development rather than creating JavaScript games, if that makes sense. And then saying, nice, this is cool. I really appreciate you. But today we're going to talk about, so first thing I'm going to say is this. Whenever you're looking to learn to code, and most people, like when I first started, I was like, I am going to just learn programming. And that's such a general statement because it doesn't really mean anything. What are you going to learn, and how do you know you're going to get a job? And because of that, I literally started learning C++ as my first language, which is a rough language to learn as your first language. And then for no reason, I was like, people say Ruby's popular. So I learned Ruby. This was back in the day when Ruby was actually popular. And there was a lot of jobs. This was maybe 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Now it's not as popular. But I had no idea. Then I did Python for randomly and PHP randomly. So I did all these random languages that didn't really bring me anywhere because I didn't have the intent or the goal that was actually going to like create a path for me to get a job. And obviously this took me a while. So the first thing what I would say is go to, like, if you're thinking of coding, and I guess you could start just by learning to code. But if you're older and you're like, man, I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to, kind of spin my wheels, the first thing I would do, I would literally go on a website like Glassdoor. Oh my God, Glassdoor? Are you serious? It's asking me too much already. But I would go to a website. There's no such thing as off topic, Andrew, on this fantastic professional show that we have here. Everything is a topic if it's on the show, and it's all good. So no, and it's really good because I just had this conversation about Canvas with somebody, because I literally asked the same question that you did like earlier in the day today, talking to my friend who's a web developer, and he said, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you could do, but in reality, like, listen, just focus on the stuff that more specifically relates to your job. Yeah, Java has maintained a strong status like forever, and I don't really care about Java, to be honest with you. And the reason I don't care about Java is because I don't really want to create things that you build with Java. It's just not something that interests me. And with that being said, doesn't mean that Java is bad. Java is good, and there's a lot of people that make a lot of money doing Java, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you don't know the language that's best use case for the stuff you want to build, how are you even gonna pick the right language? But anyway, not to sidetrack. Horace, what's up? Hey Paul, what's going on? Doing good. So the first thing I'd say when you're starting to code, maybe you play with languages for a little bit, like a minute, And before you really decide, what you need to do is you need to go to a site like Glassdoor. And then what you got to do, I actually haven't used Glassdoor in a while, so hopefully it won't backfire for me. I don't even know what I'm trying. But you go on a site like Glassdoor. Yeah, Alex is right. A lot of jobs for Java. To be honestly though, if I were to do anything kind of like Java, I'd probably learn Kotlin instead. But that's here or there. No, I'm just teasing. I'm just trolling. No, they're definitely jobs. But what I was saying, to your point, Alex, is that go on Glassdoor and find, like, I'm just going to say web development jobs, Round Rock, Texas, whatever. That's fine. And then I just see what comes up. We see PHP and Laravel make $100,000. Senior front-end developer. That's, you know, medium is like, okay, 150. And then, you know, just start looking. And when you see like, okay, so front end, full stack developer, not really, like, just get a general idea. And then you're like, you know what, I really want to focus more on front end. So let's take a look on this, whatever it says, senior front end, it doesn't matter, show more. And then you kind of look at responsibilities. And I got to make this screen bigger. This is ridiculous. Meet technical issues head on. Okay, very front-end architecture, blah, 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 blah. Bachelor's degree, blah, blah. So I'm not really senior ready at the moment. So then let's look up junior web dev, or level 1. I forgot what the proper name. Like, a lot of people search junior. It's not junior. Where's it, like level 1 UX developer or someone like that? I don't remember, but whatever. Let's look at average base for junior developer, 54,000. Wow, this is like news to me. What is happening? I don't know how to use my own computer. Okay, so regardless, but the point is, do some research and just find out what people are actually hiring for. And then when you see like what the job you want, what people are actually hiring for, go ahead and look at, you know, what do they ask you to do? They produce well-designed, testable, efficient code by using best web development practices. I think everybody says it, but here we go. It says build website layouts. So building layouts using HTML and CSS makes sense. Utilize data from various backend services. So that kind of means to me you should be comfortable working with APIs. Okay, that's basically collect and review specification requirements based on, okay, that's some more like mumbo jumbo here. Prepare, maintain software, yep, whatever, keep up to date. And then we look at the requirements. 2 years experience working on a web developer or web development programmer position. They talk about you need JavaScript, CSS, TypeScript. I don't know why they put PHP here unless it's a PHP shop, but it doesn't matter. But basically you start getting ideas of what you want. But the point is just, you should at least, like, I know I'm being vague on purpose here, but the point is, if you haven't done at least this step, how do you know what you have to learn? Like, how do you know what do you have to learn? Like, how do you know that? Like, if you haven't gone ahead and see what jobs are available in your area, how are you supposed to know what to tackle? Don't just listen blindly to people on YouTube. I mean, you could listen to me blindly, of course, because I am an expert in everything, which is not true, and I'm not an expert. And you should probably not listen to me. That's the whole point of this channel, where I tell you, do your research. But if you haven't at least went, like, if I want to become a police officer, amazing like job, then I would figure out what do police officers require, and I would do that research. No different with web development. If you want to get into web development, do the research to see what jobs are available, what is the most common tag used, you know. So that's what I do, is get an idea of what you want to do, and like, that's the first step. You know, do some research on the actual thing you will be required to do. Look at, you know, what are they asking you, what are the requirements, what tag do I need to know? Is it like HTML, CSS, React, or is it Python or whatever? It's like, so decide what it is for you. And before I jump into deeper trying to figure the rest of the stuff out, And Alex says, but JavaScript is king for front-end web development. I think, yeah, it's very important. And Web Dev Junk says, we had 4 people quit from our project within like a month, and our project isn't even that bad. I hear that market is hot for getting jobs right now. Well, Dev Junkie, listen, I'm gonna send you my resume because I think I could be a valid asset to your project. I'm not even kidding. But you bring up a very interesting point. There's this crazy concept of the great resignation, or whatever the hell it's called. Basically, people who got used to working remotely don't want to go back to work, which I get it. And basically people just, I don't know how they're supporting themselves, maybe unemployment, what have you, but nobody wants to go back to work. And so a lot of people are basically not going back to work. And so there's actually a shortage of qualified employees. And I just heard my friend talk to me about his company where they're actually trying to figure out what kind of incentive they could give to people that already work there to stay. What's interesting though, they're not lowering the bar for junior developers, right? They're not making it easier for junior developers to get a job, but they're trying to figure out how to keep the developers they have. And what's interesting to me is like, it's kind of like you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like everybody's quitting, but at the same time, you're not trying to give these new junior developers a chance. And I'm sure that's not every company. And I'm just randomly talking here. But I think like regardless, you need to skill up to be at the level that company's looking for. Not even going to argue that point. But at the same time, there's a lot more opportunities. So if you're going to start job searching and sending out your resumes, going to interview, this is the time to do it for sure. But if you don't know what those jobs are, you're not going to be able to learn the thing that you need to do. So the first thing before you decide what to learn, don't just take at face value some YouTuber on the internet, including me. Do your research, see what jobs are in your area, and then see the description of the type of stuff you're going to be doing and working with, and then decide, okay, I'm going to do the front end. And for this example, we're going to say front end. And so you're like, okay, I want to be a front-end developer. And so we could go farther and we could Google front-end web developer requirements, right? Just to kind of get an idea of what do you really need to do. Like, what do you need to be able to do? Like, do some research and figure it out. And I'm trying to find a good article that doesn't mention Java. Like, I'm gonna make it biased to JavaScript. I don't looking at sites, blah 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 blah. Just make sure. And so, okay, so once you figure that out, and Brian says JavaScript in Connecticut. Yeah, JavaScript jobs in Connecticut. That's awesome. I think there's JavaScript jobs everywhere, which is a good sign. Good sign. So let's kind of come back here to our screen, make it bigger, because everything in Texas is bigger. Actually, not true. Texas has the shortest trees where I ever seen, like tiny ass trees in Texas. So once you've realized what jobs are in your area, go ahead and Google like something front-end developer roles and responsibility to get a better understanding of what you need to do. And so here, you know, decide web page design and structure. Okay, develop features and enhance user experience. Sounds good. Strike a balance between functionality and aesthetic design. Blah, blah, blah. A lot of times you'll be working off a mock-up. Let's see, front-end development skills in 2021. Have a degree in computer science. Not true. Be proficient in coding languages such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And kind of, you know, no surprise here, you need to break into the field. You need to be comfortable with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Not sure about jQuery. Understand server-side CSS. Well, that's interesting. And graphic design applications like Adobe, Illustrator, maybe Figma. And again, they're kind of talking more also like web designer, but as a web developer and all the jobs I had, usually the mock-up is provided to you and you're going to be building stuff all the time. So we did our research. You kind of see we need HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And you do that a bunch of times, and then you get a list of things that you need to know, right? But I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure. What should I learn? What should I learn? So here's the pro tip here. You know, if you're still trying to figure out what to learn, you could see and look up curriculums from other places. You know, like you could go to, let's see, where do you want to go? Let me look at here. Okay, I closed that window. I had this prepared, but I closed this window. So it's fine. It's okay. No big deal. I'll do it again. Google. You could literally go to and search some boot camps. Codesmith, for instance. Codesmith, top ranked. I'm not saying go to boot camp, guys, before you guys, oh my God, he's going to start promoting boot. No, I'm not promoting boot camps. I'm just saying, look up what the most popular boot camps that have top ratings doing, and then scroll up to a point where it says, maybe it scroll up, scroll down, or look up full-time campus curriculum, and just click that syllabus button, click submit, and they're gonna send you their syllabus of the things they're teaching. So instead of second guessing what to learn, just look up what people are actually, you know, doing in their boot camps. And I'm not saying just use one. I'm not saying it's gonna be like hard science where if this is what you got to do. You could even look up colleges computer science curriculum if you wanted to and go from there, but just look it up. And here they'll, you know, you could get their curriculum and just kind of, okay, where is it here? So here they are. Be familiar with data structures. I'm not saying this is fact. This is what they just happened to teach the first 3 weeks of their bootcamp. Algorithms, time complexity, and big O notation. And I guess like you don't need to be an expert. Just understand that you could measure, you know, functions or code execution with big O notation and analyze which function are more performance than other. Object-oriented paradigm versus functional programming, which is great because you kind of get to do both in JavaScript if you wanted to. Even though JavaScript not a true object-oriented programming language, you could still use classes and create stuff like that. And then they talk about front-end development, talk about how to manipulate the DOM. I guess I could make this bigger, move it over here. How to manipulate the DOM. Then they talk about, okay, Redux is important, UX is important, Node is important, right? Then they talked about advanced lectures, some security, DevOps, not sure, like for a junior developer. But basically the idea is do the research, kind of, you know, see what they're doing. Then you could go to some place like Free Code Camp and kind of see what their curriculum is, you know, like do the research ahead of time. They have responsive web design, JavaScript algorithms, front-end development library certification, you know, data visualization, back-end development, and API certification. You kind of get a hold, you know, of kind of what you need to do, what you need to learn. And once you've done that, once you kind of did your research, go ahead and write it down in like a thing, like, okay, I need to learn HTML. And don't worry about the order right now, right? And then I need to learn CSS. I need to learn JavaScript. And right now you're kind of writing, I always forget the C in JavaScript. You're writing like the generalities that you saw. What else you need? Well, everybody's been talking about React. Also this idea of working with Git. I don't even, you know, what is that? You know, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. You know, working with APIs probably is an important one, you know. And then also you could, you know, do like subtopics, which we're going to get into eventually, but kind of write it out. And the reason why, like, I'm not writing JavaScript. I'm not writing Java, Python. I'm not writing every possible language, C#. Everybody needs to learn C, C++, because this is no, this is not going to help you stay focused on getting the job. You don't need to know everything to get a job. And right, and this is the biggest thing. People don't have a plan. They don't know what they need to learn, and so they try to do all this stuff. No, this right here, that's it. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Git, and working with APIs. And maybe knowing about databases, you know, SQL versus non-SQL, whatever, no SQL. And that's it. Don't need to add any more topics. You have a list. This, I know with this, you'll be able to get a job if you are able to do this stuff. And obviously, you could go for HTML and do little subclasses, you know, or JavaScript. What are the most important things I need to know in JavaScript? So I'll use JavaScript as an example here. So let me put it below here. But you could do little subtopics. And I know people are going to look at me like, why would I do? No, why would you do this? Because you want to have an idea of what you should learn to be able to be productive at your job. And so for JavaScript, like, what kind of stuff do people really ask you? Well, array manipulation. You need to know that, right? And I'm only going like the most important, like working with objects. You need to be familiar with that. Knowing ES6, all the new features, because React, that's what it uses. You know, what else do we need to know? Working with async code and understanding promises, right? And you notice how this is now becoming this checklist that I could use for my learning. And obviously this is going to take a while to make, but I'm just showing you as an example, you know. And then maybe you're talking about, let's see, we talk about JavaScript. What other example? We could talk about React. Like, what are the sub things you need to know? Well, using hooks, right? Passing props, you know, handling state, being able to know the difference when context is important versus Redux, right? Do your research, and you know, and then basically what's going to happen, instead of learning everything under the sun, exactly, Kev the dev. That's what I'm saying. You need to kind of figure this out ahead of time so you could construct like a little curriculum for yourself and a roadmap that's specific to you to get that job. Because what happens a lot of times, people go on YouTube, they listen to YouTubers like me who half the time don't even work as developers. They're just on YouTube talking about development. Maybe, like, the funniest thing, people that work in development, their YouTube channels are tiny, right? And people that don't work in development, their channels are huge. They may be making courses, doing this stuff, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with selling courses. There's nothing wrong with, but whenever you give advice from the standpoint you're a course creator and you do programming courses, your strength is your course creation, right? You're good at creating courses. So if you're going to give me advice, don't tell me advice on how to get hired. Tell me advice how to create courses for YouTube or Udemy so I could make a living. Because if you've been working on YouTube forever and all you do is sell courses and you don't work at a company as a developer, not saying you can't give valuable advice in terms of what is the track you need to follow to get hired or what do you need to do to get hired. But to be honest, you are kind of like a few degrees separate from the reality. The reason why I have this channel and the reason why I talk about this stuff, because I started without knowing how to code. I was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu MMA instructor. Like, a lot of people like don't believe me. They're like, Paul, you're not a MMA like Jiu-Jitsu guy. You don't know like anything. No, yeah, I used to teach martial arts. I used to teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Then I decided, you know what? I'm too hurt. I need to switch careers. And so I need to figure out what can I do. And so I was like, you know what, let me get into web development. I made so many mistakes. And the truth is, the mistakes that I made cost me years of being able to get a job. I could have gotten the job way sooner, way earlier, but I didn't. The reason why that didn't happen is because I did not have direction. I didn't have an outline. I didn't know what I needed to do to make stuff happen. And so this is why I have this channel, is because I made all these mistakes. I felt the, you know, the repercussions of those mistakes, and I eventually was able to become a web developer. And I literally did it through clawing through the trenches, trying to figure out what to do. And for me, what people say, what gives you the right to kind of, give advice is the fact that I am not an expert. I'm literally talking about exactly the things that I had to do to get hired. And when I tell you guys about these tips, it's not because I want to sell you courses. And if I do have courses, like, of course I'm going to sell you courses, but I will never tell you that, like sell you like a dream saying, oh no, if you take my courses in 3 months, you're going to make $150,000. I'm going to say, no, it's hard. It takes a lot of work, and probably in 3 months, you're not going to be able to do it. Maybe in 6 months, you're not going to be, maybe it'll take you a year. It took me 5 years to get my first job. I started seriously coding around like 36, like 37 years old. And then at 39, I was able to get my job. So I just want to give you my honest opinion. And if you guys have an easier chance to break into the field, or you have some tips that work for you, please share them with me. But I want you guys to know that it is very difficult, and so I want to share with you guys things that work. But anyway, talking about creating a curriculum. Once you understand kind of like what technologies you want to learn, what you want to learn, make a list of those things. And then the next thing you could go, if you're going to go like self-taught route, in your Google spreadsheets, especially if you're not going to bootcamp and you're being self-taught. And again, let me know if this is too boring for you guys. Like, to me, this is just something I wish someone would have told me. I wish I knew, wish I didn't. But what I'm saying here, once you, and again, this is a very simplified example, once you kind of realize what you have to learn, identify like the best sources, resources. Maybe it's, using Udemy. Maybe it is, and I would be more specific, what specific one course, or like the idea for resources, I don't want you to have 20. I want you to have one resource. If you have like that you're going to follow through and study like a classroom, because if you have 10 courses for HTML, what possibly new thing you're going to learn after your first or second HTML course? Like, surprise alert, I have pretty much every development course you could possibly have on Udemy. I have 2 different accounts. I probably have it. And so what I would do, once you have your outline of the stuff you have to learn, and you don't have to put Udemy, you could find free resources online or websites to learn from. But I'm a big believer in investing money in your education, because it shows your intention that you're serious about what you're doing. And let me go first answer some questions before I come back here to continue this crazy live stream today. Alex says, what format were the mockups in Photoshop? They're literally in PSD files at one company. My current project that I'm working, they literally gave me a Photoshop file. But I know nowadays a lot of people using like specific mockup applications like Figma or Adobe XD. The point is, just understand that at your job, instead of writing the design yourself or coming up with a design, a web designer, UX UI person will give you the mockup, will give you the design, and your job is not to create the design from scratch yourself in terms of like, well, what color should this be, or should this be rounded or not, or should it be what kind of font. That's all handled by UX UI designers. Your job is to implement the design, meaning convert it to HTML, CSS, or React, or whatever tech you're using. So that's what I would say there. Good places to learn JavaScript. And there's bajillion places to learn. I've been lately really enjoying John Smilga courses because they're really good. They're up to the point. They're always updated. And John Smilga, he's an engineer. Like, he has that mindset, engineering mindset, which logically he's able to think through stuff. And the way he structures his courses is very logical progression, starting from the basics, building on those basics, and with each new topic that it introduces, you incorporate the thing you learned before, and while adding the next step. So it's a very logical progression to get on top. And so coming back here, and let me say here, your channel is pretty consistent. Well, thank you. I try my best. I'm still like a beginner on YouTube and every else. But coming back to our tips. So once you identify kind of what you need to get a job, and notice how this list isn't huge. Now, this is the trick here. I would say only 1, maybe 2 resources. And this could be free from YouTube. It could be from Udemy. I'm gonna use Udemy for this example, but you could use whatever. You could like use not Coursera, what is it, like Coursera, EDX, or whatever it is. You could use those, but let's say, you know, HTML and CSS, whatever. And just look up, like, find a good resource. And here's the thing, if you go for the top rated ones, you probably could tell it's going to be a pretty good course. You don't need to buy all of them like I did, like an idiot. But my favorite one is this, John Smilga tutorial and project course. It is amazing because it's 36 hours, not of just content, but plenty of practice projects for you guys to do. And so what I would do, I would copy and paste this, go into my Google Docs spreadsheets that I close it like an idiot, like a maniac. And then I would say for HTML, I would add that as a resource. And it's the same resource for CSS. And notice I would say 1, maybe 2. I'm going to add 1 because let me just say something. If I look through this, what have we covered here? HTML tutorial. Let's take a look. Okay, basic setup, paragraph elements, lower image, basic blah, 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 crops, links, strong tags, nested tags, all this other stuff. I could go to any HTML and CSS course. Just guys, this is to put it to a stop. Oh, Wally, if you're here, I know this is like really crazy, but if you want to in a few minutes jump on and talk and give your opinion, if you're in front of your computer, let me know, and I'll send you a link via Gmail. I just was so busy I wasn't able to figure out a good time to do it. But if you want to jump on today, it'll be great. Talk about this one. But the point is, like, look at this. Modern HTML. This is another great course. But if you look at through the CSS basics, colors, types, links, positioning, it's the same goddamn thing. People, yeah, and I could share the file. I'm just showing you how to make it yourself, because what I'm learning could be different in your use case. If you're jumping in a little bit late, you saw how I talked about how to do job search in your local area to see what types of jobs are available, and whatever jobs are available in your area, use that to define what type of stack you need, tech stack you need to learn to be able to get a job. But notice it's the same goddamn thing. And this is why I'm saying here, you only need one resource for HTML and CSS. For JavaScript, let's go, you know, boom, JavaScript. I'm giving you a basic guys overview here, just so you guys have to do this on your own to practice. And again, I love John Smilga courses. They're the best. I took all his courses. I'm actually taking his Node course right now. 40 hours of amazing content. Yeah, great resource. And I'm not saying you have to buy Udemy courses. You could find free equivalents online or whatever. But then I go back and I put it for JavaScript. And basically what I do is, once I get through this, I'm going to have 5 to 6 courses, right? And this is the point where you don't take every freaking course possible. 1 course per item. That's it. Because the most important thing, and Wally, I'm going to send it to you in a few minutes. So just, yep, I'm definitely going to get you on here. It'll be great. And so what's going to happen, you're going to have 5 to 6 courses in terms of like JavaScript, CSS, React, maybe working with Git, find like using Git course, right? Really good one is by, what's that guy's name? Oh my God, his course is great and it doesn't show up as a top course. Whatever. Like, fine, I'm just using this as an example. I've never taken this course, so don't say I recommended it to you. Like, I never took this, I'm just using it as an example. When you find that, you know, Git, blah, 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 you put Git, okay, working with Git, putting React, and let me just do this by example. Give me guys some like a break, but I want to kind of give you a good understanding how to kind of organize this. Where's John Smilga course right here, React. Where is it? Oh my God, it's not on the first page. Are you kidding me? The guy's class is amazing. This is amazing React course, by the way. I do recommend any John Smilga courses, copy. And then, you know, put it here. Look, I'm already up 4 courses. With the truth is, yeah, Cold Steel. Thank you, Bruno. Bruno Silva says Cold Steel's Git. That's the one I was referring to. Really good one. I bought that one. But the point what I'm saying, this is already 4 to 5, 6 courses. 6 courses is more than enough to learn the basics. Like in college, you don't take 1,000 courses like many of us own on Udemy. So you pick one resource to learn from, and what you do is you methodically go and finish the course on HTML, CSS, build one project based on what you learned from scratch yourself, then you move on to JavaScript, then you move to React, then you move to whatever other course you're doing. But the way you do that, the way you go through this is by, number one is, once you identify a curriculum, find one resource. Like I have 1,000 courses that I'm with full confidence could tell you, you only need one HTML course. You don't need 10. They all talk about the same thing. They literally talk about the same thing. I spent over $3,000 on Udemy, and 90% of courses I never finish. Pick 5 courses based on the tech that you need to learn to get hired, and this is how you take the course. Number one, go through the course, complete all the exercises, complete all the course projects. So that way, at least you have those to throw in your portfolio if you, if you have nothing. After you complete that first course, take time from courses, from learning. You don't need to do any learning, and complete one project from scratch based on what you learn. Then do the same thing with JavaScript. Do the JavaScript Udemy course or any course. Complete it with all the projects in the course. Before you move on to the next course, build a project from scratch based on what you learn, and do the same thing with React. And after this is said and done, it's probably been like 3 to 6 months. You have 3 amazing projects in your portfolio that you built from scratch. You also have filler portfolio projects from the courses that you took, and then you stop. Then you need to move on to writing your resume, setting up LinkedIn, making sure you have GitHub, practicing interviewing, and getting ready for prep. You don't need to waste any more time trying to learn forever. There's this amazing video. I'm going to play the quote before I put Wally on, and just give me a minute. I did not forget. Let me, I hope I don't get copyright. I don't think I'm going to get copyright because I'm going to play. I followed this channel called Think Media, and he had this guy on, this guy right here.
Hulu Ad Manager is the easy way for businesses like yours.
Okay, sounds good. Skip ad. And this is the biggest problem.
They're strong.
Hold on, I'll show it to you guys.
Content he creates.
I'm just trying to find
super
it.
Fired up for this episode
Hold
with
on a second.
real stuff that's going addiction.
Forget they have to execute.
Yeah, here we go.
Forget they have an entrepreneur as a creator. You subconscious here, so I appreciate you, man.
Okay, so this is the guy talking about the biggest problem, and this is not in web development. This is in like business, content creation, things. But let me turn off my music so you guys could hear it, so I could make the audio louder. Hopefully it's not too loud and blow up your ears. But he's talked about one of the #1 obstacles for everybody. This is so true in web development that I want to share this first before we get Wally on.
I know. It's mastery versus overload is what needs to happen.
So hold on a second.
Over the next 7 rules to 7 figures, the entrepreneur's worst addiction. What is that?
It's information overload. Thanks for having me. I love your guys'
So this guy's going to talk
content. I've known you for years.
Information overload, meaning like there's bajillion courses online, and all people do is they try to take course after course after course, which really doesn't lead anyone anywhere. And this is a problem not just in web development, it's in everything, because we're living in information age.
So I appreciate you, man. Side note, it's mastery versus overload is what needs to happen, because I think people right now are so obsessed with information. There's evolving technology, there's information overload, there's so much content coming online every second that people are overloaded and overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed as an entrepreneur, as a creator, you subconsciously seek distraction.
So this, he talked about that we just randomly get distraction. That's not the most important point. I'm just trying to find where he said the most important part.
Entrepreneurs see. So reading a book is difficult. Like you don't the right information that's relevant. People
Here we
are
go.
so obsessed, an entrepreneur as a creator,
Okay,
you
I guess it's coming right now.
subconsciously seek distraction. You don't even mean to. So what I see, especially with the young demographic and a lot of up and coming
This is
content
everybody.
creators,
This is
YouTube
not-
creators,
This
entrepreneurs,
is in general
CEOs,
across the board
is
true.
people are so obsessed with
Right here.
consuming and with learning, they forget they have to execute. And that's the biggest problem is people trick themselves in thinking they need more information when they really need to execute the right information that's relevant to their business and their goals. And I've seen that happen that was me back in the day.
Bam, right there. He just gave you the secret to becoming a web developer, becoming whatever. It's not over consuming tutorials, but it's executing and actually building and doing the important stuff that's going to get you closer to the job, right? You don't get hired because you did tutorials. You get hired because you know what you're doing, you learn what you needed to do, and most importantly, you have the projects that you built from scratch to show through it. If you don't think that was the most important tip that didn't even come from a web developer, but came from some weird entrepreneur, like smash the like button. I don't know what to tell you, but that's exactly true. And let me just send this invite link to my man. I want to have a conversation, so might as well. Let me invite Wally here. Wally. I can't say W's, guys. Like, so just please forgive me. Okay, so got to go to my email. My music sounds too loud now. I don't know what's happening. I'm all over the place. But that's the whole point that I was trying to kind of say to you guys, the importance of, hey guys, stop trying to take 30 Udemy courses. You need, like I showed you on a spreadsheet, you only need few, and you need to execute actually from start to finish, complete the course, build your own projects, and go from there. And I am sending this invite link. I am sending it. Hold on a second. I'm gonna get a guest. This guy is awesome. He's a frequent guest on Coding Phase, and really cool guy. So I'm actually excited to have him be here, and so this is gonna be amazing. And thanks, Grace. Yeah, that was good guideline that you put in the Excel. And I really literally, let's not get information overload to a point where it paralyzes us to do anything. You know what I'm saying? It's just like that. That's just the thing. Like we gotta do the right thing. So here I am. I want to send an email to Wally. Subject link. Paste the link, click enter, and let's wait for him to jump on when he's ready, just so we can have a conversation. But yeah, that's plain and simple. Basically, number one, know the goal that you want to hit. I want to become a React developer. It's more specific than I want to learn to code. So make sure you have a specific goal in mind. Then find out from doing Googling, like I did earlier in this stream, all the resources and all the information you need to know to kind of give you an overview what is required to get the job that you want. Number three, create a curriculum based on those requirements. Number four, for each topic in your curriculum, like HTML and CSS, JavaScript, React, that's three things, you only need one course, one resource that you could finish. 100% that will help you to have direction to complete what you need to do. And Henry Chan, what do you think of doing the Web Developer Bootcamp 2021 Cold Steel as a total beginner? If you already bought that course, you could go ahead, do it from start to finish. I'm not a big fan of the all-in-one courses where they try to teach you everything in one course, even though I think it's massive number of hours. I literally pick one resource per topic. So if you already bought that course, just go through it, finish it all before you move on to something else. But what I normally recommend, if you're doing HTML and CSS, buy a HTML and CSS specific course. If you're doing JavaScript, find a specific JavaScript course. And if you're doing React, find a specific React course. And I just want to do some freelance on the side. Yeah, so doing freelance on the side is very difficult. I've done freelancing before. I also own my own business. I taught Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts. Before people say, how is this relevant? It's relevant because when you are a freelancer, you're not just providing the service of building the website. That's not the only thing you do, because if you don't have customers, you're gonna suck at freelancing. And I'm gonna bring Wally in just a minute. Let me finish this question. So give me a 1 minute, Wally. But freelancing is very difficult because not only do you have to find clients, you have to sell the job, you have to price the job accordingly, you have to, do your bookkeeping. What happens if the client is not paying you? How do you handle that? There's so much stuff that I never recommend anybody goes freelancing without experience. So when I opened up my martial arts school, which ended up being very successful, is because I had 10 years of martial art business experience working for somebody else before I did it on my own freelancing. And any good alternatives to Udemy? I mean, I like Coursera is really good, and EDX and other platforms like that where you could try classes for free. But there's plenty of resources, including YouTube. So let me bring Wild here. Hey, what's up? Oh my
Yo,
God!
what's up? Can you hear me?
Okay,
fine?
now I could hear you. For a second, I freaked out. And
Okay,
people in the
cool.
chat, let
Hey,
us know
everybody.
if you guys could. Yeah, saying hello. Yeah, let me turn it down. Man, thank you for jumping on like just at the moment's notice. I've seen you on
Yeah.
Coding Face. I was like, that guy is cool. You know?
Yeah,
It'll
hell
be-
yeah.
it'll be-
I'm on there
it'll be
with
cool
Joe
time.
often.
Yeah. One day I want to chat with Joe. One day it's gonna happen. I know he's so busy. You know?
Joe's up to a lot. He has a lot of projects on his plate, most definitely.
Yeah. So, like, maybe some people know you, maybe some people don't. Tell us like the brief story about you and how you got started in what you do.
Okay. So, yeah, pretty much. I started coding on and off, like starting last year, and I got a AA in computer science, and I didn't do much with it. I had my own AC company down here in Miami. I was fixing AC units with my dad, that sort of thing. And man, hard labor is lame. I'm not a fan of it. And that didn't go much of anywhere. So I decided, I'm gonna code. Why not? I'm very tech savvy, so it just made sense to me. So I think it was about May. I bought Joe's or Coding Phases a yearly subscription, and I got my first job in August the 2nd, and yeah, it's going great. Just trying to learn as much as possible, and pacing myself correctly, right?
Yep.
So far I've been just HTML and CSS, and I'm just starting to learn JavaScript actually this past week.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think the hardest thing, and we could both agree, and I'm sure everybody can agree on, is that finding your first job is the hardest thing. It's the most challenging thing. I'm on LinkedIn quite often, and I see a lot of people in boot camps, 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years, and they haven't found a job in the field, and they've applied to in the double digits to 3 digits amounts of companies. So, the one thing that caught my eye with Joe was the fact that there was a clear path to sort of get
Yep.
your foot in the door in the tech industry. And for someone who, like me, that was switching careers. Oh, and I am I am 30. so when I found the channel, I was like, oh man, this guy is cool. Like, he's going for this demographic. It makes sense. So for me, it was really important. I had no roadmap. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was just like, okay, just I guess code. I took this Java class and this C++, and where do I go from here? So finding Joe was a blessing on its own, and
Yep.
it was very straightforward. It's just like, your first job isn't going to be the best job. Your first job, the chances of it being 6 figures are like
Zero.
like pretty much. But if you're humble enough to, sort of put yourself in a position where you just got to put the hours in and put the work in for that first job, then hey, there's a job for you out there. um so yeah, my first job is, the title's email developer. I work with an ESP called Aweber. It's kind of like it's a pseudo drag and drop sort of thing.
Yep.
You add your image link, it populates it. You want to send it, you click a button. But on the flip side, you can get under the hood and,
Right.
I'm often, coding things out in line in
Yep.
VS Code and then testing it over in Litmus,
Yep.
which it's a tester for emails that allows you to see whether or not these emails are compatible in Outlook, Gmail, any screen size on phones, tablets, and all that sort of thing. So my job pretty much as an email developer is making sure that whatever assets that clients send us look 100% perfect on all these screens.
Right, and that's actually a
Um,
really challenging thing to do, by the way, to make it work and
it
look
is.
perfect on every possible thing that someone could consume email on. It's insane.
Exactly.
Yeah, so like somebody just asked the question, who is Joe? That's Coding Face, man. He's
Yeah.
like if you're on YouTube, you know who Joe is. That's basically it. But like what I like about Joe is that besides telling it how it is, he also is the first person to talk about these non-traditional ways of working your way up the ladder, being like, okay, maybe you can't get a job as a React developer because you don't have an experience. Don't wait. Don't waste your time. Do something like email development or something along those lines, because this is what I'm going to say. It's going to count on your LinkedIn as experience in development. And that's huge. And that's huge. A lot of people don't realize it because, like you were saying, a lot of people are chasing the dream. They want to make that 6-figure income, want to get that fancy car, that they think that after 3 months, they're going to get that high paying job. And then when no one hires them, they're like, what's going on? And I think you got to have realistic approach to it and you got to do it. And what's funny is that you haven't been like in terms of like your whole life studying code for that long, but you're already working in a related field and you're only going to go up from there. Where there are people who don't do that, don't try to approach like stuff with a wider kind of perspective, they'll spend 2 years and not get a job. And that's insane. That's insane.
100%, Paul. And one of the biggest things, I had a lot of people also putting their opinions in, and everybody has an opinion. And someone was like, hey, why didn't you just apply to front end? I'm like, dude, like my resume first of all, I didn't have a resume.
Yep.
I have like 4 years of doing air conditioning work that has zero to do with anything tech. So it's like you have to get that first position, that first job that kind of puts that stamp on approval. Like this
Right.
company took a risk on me. This company required me to be XYZ, pay attention to detail, all those sort of prerequisites. It gives you that social proof, right? When you
Yeah,
show up
100%.
to an interview, they're like, because then the conversation is a lot more fluid, right? It's like, hey, what sort of work did you do at this company? And then it's like, yo, like, I reported to the CMO. I worked remote. Oh, by the way, my first job is remote, which
That's
is a blessing.
fantastic. Yeah, thank God. Man,
Thank
that's
the
amazing.
coding gods. But yeah, someone asked me like, hey, why not apply to front end? Like, why even bother? And my reasoning is like, no one knows you from a hole in the wall. It'll look that much better on your resume when you show up and it's like, yo, yeah, I've been at this company for 6 months, a year, and I'm ready to take it to the next level. Another big reason is if you walk into an interview scenario, let's say you're in the lobby and there's like 8 guys there, 8 guys or girls, whoever, and someone sitting next to you has 3 months of experience at XYZ company doing
Right.
whatever, content editor, going into WordPress and changing the title
Yeah,
of
that was my
whatever,
first
adding
job,
a
by the
little,
way.
huh?
That was my first job, by the way. doing
There you
WordPress
go.
stuff,
Yo,
exactly.
what year was that? Do you remember?
No, this was So 4 years ago. So
Okay. 22, 21, 2019. Okay, so Paul 2018 is sitting next to me, let's say 4 months ago. Paul's gonna get the job just because he had whatever duration of time at this company. He's gonna get that job before they'll consider him, way before they consider me, because I have zero experience,
yeah,
and that's just the net of it.
unless you build something crazy complex. And this is why a lot of the stuff that I talk about has to be complex, at least your final cornerstone project, because working as a developer for past 3 years, I'm like, if you're not showing in your project the stuff that I do on day to day now, it's going to be very hard for someone to be like, oh, okay, like the guy knows what he's doing, because they are trying to take a chance. And I think, like, just one caveat I'll say, there's a lot of companies with different needs, so it's not impossible, but it's very difficult. But it's very, very hard. Very, very hard. So to give you my journey, I got an internship at a company working WordPress content editing, where you need to know a little bit of HTML, CSS. Then that internship turned to paid internship, because initially I started for free. Then that paid internship turned to like contract work. And then based on all this WordPress stuff I did and the experience on my LinkedIn, it says so many years of experience front-end development. And then I was actually able to land my React job.
There we go.
Like, I still had to, learn and know React. By the way, you can't get a job if you don't know how to do the service. But yeah, I mean, it's a process. It's a process. And it's kind of nice to have like people like you, people who are in the trenches, going through the process, and not these people who want to get attention, who either lying about the problem. I'm not saying they're lying, but lying about like, oh, in 3 months I made 300,000 because of my Python developer, because that just sets the wrong expectation with people, it's just nuts. And so for me, it's like programming is hard, coding is hard. Like you need to provide the value to the company that greatly exceeds what they're going to pay you. And if you can't do that, they're not going to pay you that big income. Like, I remember, working as a busboy, that was like $5 an hour back in the day, plus tips, because all you're doing is you're just taking dirty plates off a table. When I did roofing, that was like very hard labor, and I was a laborer, and that was like $25 an hour, because like the work was harder. And now, like, working as a developer, the stuff that I do, like, mentally it's harder, and there's a greater value that I'm providing. And so, like, okay, now like they're paying me $40 an hour, and like at some point I'm gonna make more. But you kind of have to be able to provide that value to the company if you expect to get the big bucks. And this is why I'm surprised when people like learn just the bare minimum and then they want to get a job making 100K. Like, it's like, come on now.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. Like, I get the question often, like, oh, how much time do I have to put into it? And it's like, you just have to do it. Like, 2 hours a day every day, and if you can more. Like, how bad do you want it? Like, I kid you not, like, my life is, thanks to like at least the roadmap that Joe gave me, my life has changed. Like, literally, Paul, I can see clearly now. I just got LASIK surgery done like a month ago, and now I can afford it because I put the work in. Because every day I was like, do I want to keep on doing this manual labor? Do I want to keep on putting my energy towards something that doesn't fulfill me at all? Like, in my head, I have, like, my life is being able to live wherever I'd like to, right? Having that sort of leverage in my life where I can say, you know what, I don't want to live here now. I can go somewhere else. And there were other things that I was doing that were very limiting, or I found limiting. But before AC, I actually, no, after AC, I tried real estate. That didn't work out. It was just not my thing. But there, there's always humble beginnings for everybody. So it's important to understand that, like, yeah, you might make the 70K, you might make the 90, 100, but if you there's a more likelier chance of getting in this industry starting around the 50 to 60 mark,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe even a little bit less, and that's
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
because you put that work in, and you put that on your LinkedIn, you work on your LinkedIn. Next thing you know, it changed for me, and I saw the difference. It was like
yep,
I was applying to different positions all the time.
yep.
Once I got the job,
Now everybody's just hustling
now
you.
everybody's hitting me up like,
Yep,
"Hey, I saw
100%.
your LinkedIn. Hey, we're offering this job. Hey, come work over here." And I'm
Yep,
like,
yep.
Wait, where were you people?" You know, I'm sure you get the same thing too.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing that I want to say, like, like talking about this idea, you don't need 1,000 resources. Like, you found a good home with Joe at Coding Phase. He has really good stuff, and you're
Hmm.
doing like kind of following his plan. Like, you could
Yeah,
find like one instructor in Udemy, follow his plan. You could follow some of the stuff I say, my plan. But the point
yeah,
is like you just need to have a plan. But the key
yeah,
ingredients, I'm going to tell you right now, is not Joe, it's not me, but it's you. You're the key ingredient because you're doing the work, you're executing on the plan. And I always want to feel like I have to say that stuff because a lot of people, they think that the next person has the secret. No, we just give guidance, but the guidance alone
yeah,
is not enough if you don't do the work. And so the people that succeed versus people that don't, like, share a different attitude. Like, for instance, like, I could tell just briefly talking to you that you at some point just decided, made a commitment that you're not going to take no to, like you were going to make it work no matter what. Like, is that kind of like the way you feel, or am I just completely like misreading you?
no, 100%. Like if I want to do something, I don't give up. Like that's a big thing. Even when I was going for, even for my HVAC contractor license, like there are two portions to the test. I failed one portion 3 times.
Wow.
I didn't stop, and I had to wait a month in between taking those tests, and I had just had to go back. Oh crap! I failed by one question, you know. So, and even for real estate, a real estate license, I took that twice. Um, so for coding, it was the same thing. I was just like, okay, how am I progressing? Like, okay, I saw this whole tutorial. Let me close all of that, and how much of it, like, can I create a website? Like, do I know how to position things correctly?
Right.
uh how much do I actually remember? And you're 100% right. It's not necessarily like you have to, you have to the most important thing with coding is focus.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing, like with anything in life, is just like focus, and really hone in on that goal and how to get work backwards from that,
Yeah.
and then like laser focus your way straight over there. So just like you were saying, yes, I use a coding phase as a way to learn, but I do supplement. I do like I took actually your advice, and I listened to how you had like 1,000, hundreds of
I have
different
proof. I have
Udemy
proof.
courses,
It's
and
ridiculous.
I'm like, okay, like 10 or less. Let's do 10 or less.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, I splurged on Brad Traversy and
Yep.
John's what is it, Smigly or something
Smilga.
for
Smilga.
Java.
Yeah.
Smilga, yeah, yeah, for
JavaScript. Good course.
JavaScript. So
Yeah.
like I'm going through Joe's JavaScript course, and then then gonna see what how I can edit some projects that I already have, right, by
Right.
adding like different event listeners,
Yep.
different things like that, maybe creating a modal on my own,
Yeah.
um and then supplementing that with Brad Traversy, right? Both different teaching styles,
Yep.
both different amount of like, one is more like I would say more cookie cutter, like A to Z. One is more like, hey, this is what you need, and you're gonna hit the ground running, and you can figure it out,
Yeah.
so that's definitely important. But yeah, the thing is not giving up, and I'm definitely not a quitter. Yeah,
Yeah. And like, how do you approach doing courses? Like, obviously, you could follow the instructor and you could just leave it at that. But what's your
yeah.
strategy when you're taking courses?
Okay, so my strategy is go through let's say for example, we're creating a modal or something with a drop down menu that takes up the full screen.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, that was an interesting, let's say that's I don't know, 2 hours or so. um Watch that, and I'm like, all right, how much of this do I actually remember? Okay, let's go back in, and then I try to do it on my own.
Yep.
And then if I bump my head, I'm like, all right, let's look up what I'm having troubles with. Okay, can I fill in the blanks myself? And then it's like, okay, I'm having trouble with this. All right, I'm gonna go back to the course and ingrain that again, right?
Yeah.
So at least that's in the in the micro, right?
Yep. Yep.
But in the macro of learning things, it's like you just have to have those projects that you're gonna build, right? So for, let's say for example, for CSS, I wanted to learn grid, so I watched a portion of Brad Traversy's grid section and Joe's section. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna remake a website. So what I like to do is I have an account on ThemeForest Elements.
Yep.
So I can like, I have my pick of whatever
Exactly.
themes that I can take a look at. And what I do is I'm like, all right, this is a news grid article page, and it is definitely using CSS grid. Cool. I'm gonna remake it.
Right. There you
So
go.
I remake it as best to my abilities, and it's not to say that I just like, okay, this looks like it's about 550 pixels with. No, I'm right clicking, I'm
Yeah.
inspecting,
Yeah.
I'm
And that's
seeing
a good way to do it. 100% for learning.
what's the size of it, because I'm not going to be here messing around with the size of it for 15
Yeah.
minutes. Like, no,
Yeah.
I want to know the size. I'm going to get the positioning right. Like, I'm going
Yep.
to understand how to use the grid system, asides, all those different things that are
Yep.
required with HTML and CSS. But what happens is the more projects that I do, the more it reinforces,
Yeah.
right? And that's something that I've heard is like, if you learn something, you should look at what you learned freshly at least 3 days later,
Right.
and then offset that another 3 days, and then
Yep.
another 5 days.
Yep.
And that's how it gets from
Reinforce
your
that. Yep.
short-term memory to long-term
Yeah.
memory,
100%.
which is what we're looking for. Yeah.
And then
So
one
that's how
thing,
I go
like,
about it.
yeah, and that's great because, like, one thing I was gonna say, and because, like, I've done construction, you've done AC, like a lot of that's like skill based like activity. And obviously there's conceptual stuff like with AC installation, conceptual stuff with like some of the stuff that I used to do when I used to do construction. But the way you learn it is by doing and actually building. Like, you have to apply the skill, and coding is the same thing. It's no different that you're developing a skill, and that's the most important part. And this is why I tell people, if you're not building, you're actually avoiding the most efficient and effective way to learn to code. You know what I mean? It's like insane. It's insane that some people, they'll watch YouTube, they'll do Udemy courses, but they don't
Yeah.
actively code, and then they wonder, why can't I build something? And the great question for you, Web Dev Junkie goes, who's this guest speaker again? And then it's like, well, he codes, and then he says, does he have a channel? Do you have a YouTube channel?
No, I don't.
You have the
My
voice
name's
for
just
it.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
You
should
think?
probably
Oh,
make. Yeah,
man.
I think you should do it. Yeah, you're very cool, very like kind of like laid back, and like you speak well. Like, it's great. Like, I say like, yep, like 20 billion times, and you're just like very precise. It's like you think first, then you speak. I think I speak first, and then I think about what I said.
Yeah, yeah. I feel you, man. That's such a great compliment. Thank you. I'll consider it. The thing for me, it's like, what do I, what's gonna be my thing, and what's that roadmap look like, and what's the plan? Like, how do I gain value? How does everybody else gain value? And can
Yep.
I live with myself?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
YouTube, yo, man, YouTube's a grind, man. I
Oh no,
follow
it's
some other.
terrible. It's terrible. Like,
Yeah, man, they've changed the algorithm. Like,
oh
if
my God,
you got
oh
it,
my
you
God.
got to hit that 2 year mark, and then you start seeing some nice
Yeah,
little growth.
100%. It's messed up. Like, I do
But
like
hey,
YouTube because it's good for the soul. Like, because they'll never make money doing YouTube, no matter how hard I try. Like, like basically, I'm not gonna quit my
yeah,
day job. I'm a programmer, developer first. But
yeah,
Web Dev Junkie says you got the right setup for it already. Like lights, You know, the mic is
Oh
ready.
yeah. Yo, I am okay. So one thing about me, I'm very detail sort of person. So
Yep.
yeah, I like I got the camera, I got the setup. Like, you know, another thing too. It's like okay, back to learning. Learning is, and I'll tie this all in. Learning in this world, you have to learn how to learn, and that's one thing that I learned growing up. I was always in art school, so I've always been kind of like, you know, odd and, you know, out of the box and, you know, drawing weird stuff. But you know, if I'd ever encounter like a medium, like I'd do acrylic painting and then oil pastels or something, which are more like kind of crayons.
Yep.
It's like, how do I use this? How can I mess with it? How can I mangle it? Like, and that's a learning process. Also with sculpting things, you know, a 3D class you take, it's like, hey, you got to make a concept about found objects. So it's like, I'm putting garbage together and making stuff up about a meaning or something. So it's just you know, a lot of refinement over time on a process that works for you, because we all learn differently.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, like, know yourself. That's one thing that these big people like Gary Vee say. It's like, yo, like, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? Work to your strengths,
Yeah.
and you'll win, right? And then leverage out your weaknesses to someone else that could do it, right?
Yep.
So maybe if I'm not the best designer and I have my own advertisement agency, or I'm just a freelancer, hey, like, I'm gonna pay someone who's a designer on Fiverr or Upwork or Craigslist or whatever. Hey, here's your cut. I'm gonna tie that into whatever invoice that I'm gonna send the client, and that's it. I just build whatever they sent me, that
Yeah.
design.
Yeah. No,
Um, but
100%.
with learning comes like, all right, just like I decided, I'm gonna be in my room a lot. I want to have a dope ass setup that like makes me feel good about where I'm at, where I'm spending all my time at. Like, I'm not gonna be in a spot that doesn't inspire me, right? So 100%, I have the light, I have the awesome microphone, I have the table, I have my speakers set up because I also am teaching myself how to produce music. Like
Nice. What do
it,
you
it
use for that? I'm
huh?
curious. What do you use to produce music on?
Ableton, because you're
Ableton. I
able to
got the
do
same
it.
thing. I did FL Studio for a while, and I just recently
Okay,
switched to
dope,
Ableton. I suck,
dope,
by the
dope.
way. Just saying. I suck at music, but it's funny
M-
because it's such
Hey
a
man,
good
me
thing.
too.
It's such a
Me
good
too,
thing.
man.
We'll have to get
It's
together, make something for sure.
yeah, man. We could cook up some beats or something, some
100%.
sounds. Yeah,
100%.
yeah. It's so, look, like, everything has its learning curve, and you just have to trust the process. Like, whether it's coding or music, it's like, you know, you're starting, everything's crap, you're kind of maybe getting somewhere, and then all of a sudden, like, you look a couple months later and you're up here on
Yeah.
the slope, you know, and you look, even for me, I look back and I'm like, damn, like, you know, I can do stuff now.
Yeah.
Like, and the beautiful thing is that, like, life, the way that we're set up as our society right now, it's like, the more useful you become, the more you get paid.
Yeah.
Like, in
100%.
this field, like, everybody in this field, the more you know, the more you learn, the more you earn, literally. Like,
The
and if you
cool.
play your cards right,
Yep.
like, and you listen to people like Joe, like Paul, you know, you gotta know how to be a good judge of character. Paul's
Right.
cool.
I guess.
You know,
I
if
guess.
you
I
keep
guess.
your ear on the ground, you'll get to where you want to get to. But, you know, you have to put in the effort.
Yeah.
That's it.
The
Hmm.
coolest thing about programming to me is that you maybe you'll forget some stuff, but you'll always know where to look it up, so you can't unlearn. So if you do it every day, that's impossible to go backwards. You're always moving forward. You're always adding your value. And to me, what's amazing, like with coding, I could literally go to another country and be like,
Yeah.
I have nothing to declare when you show up, and have this knowledge in your head that you could get a
Yeah.
job. Like,
Hmm.
it's always with you. And I like that, because where the future's going with the pandemic, everything else, it's like you never know. And having like a high in demand skill that allows you to work remotely, to me, that alone is worth pursuing. And Grace says you can always talk about your journey. And I was kind of going to say, yeah, like, there's so many people on YouTube that either made it and been on top for a while, or maybe they're just straight up lying. Not saying like anybody lies on YouTube ever,
Yeah.
because they have some agenda. But I think it's good to have real people, and that's why I kind of like was happy that you jumped in, who actually did the thing that someone recommended. Like it happened for them, but you don't have any hidden agenda, and you like literally like so honest about it. You're like, look, this is what I did, this is why I did it. In my journey, I just started learning JavaScript. Like you're not trying to impress anybody. You're just talking about, this is the path for me. This is what I'm gonna do, and this is a path that could be like for a lot of other people who are starting out the journey. And a lot of times the advice you get from people, like they mean well, but they're giving advice. It's like my like gym teacher trying to tell you how to install an AC unit. Like, what are you smoking? It's like it doesn't it like makes no sense. And that's basically what some of this advice is. And I think we need more people who are going through the process. They're in the trenches and they're just sharing their experience. I think this is important. We got a question here. I like these type of questions. Hold on a second. Web development versus Android development. I don't do any Android development, so I can't answer. But the follow-up question is interesting. I want to do a startup in the future. Is it necessary to learn web or Android development? And my answer for this question would be like, what problem are you solving that somebody hasn't solved? Because otherwise, like, what's the selling point for your startup? Because if you just saying it's a startup, but you don't have something that nobody did, then you're probably not gonna be successful, as weirdly as it sounds. I don't mean to rain on anybody's parade. I wanna create a company and do software as a service, but you gotta really take into consideration, like, are you providing a solution that doesn't exist or different enough that it's better than what somebody else did, if that makes sense? Yeah, it's funny.
I mean, kudos for wanting to start your own business. Go for it. If you don't know the difference between either or what it takes to get to either or to be competent enough to be in business, then it's worth your while to understand what you're getting yourself into. Because, like, I mean, okay, what about Android development? What about it? Like apps, like how much, what's the what's the market for that look like? Like how many companies are actually doing that in your state, in your country? How much money can you make from that? You have to see if it's even worth you getting into it in the first place. Because from what I heard, it's been diminishing returns for app development. I don't know about you. That's just me. I hear it every once in a blue moon. So
yeah, I think like just even more general, if you don't understand the business, you will never succeed. And when a lot of people say I want to do freelancing, like I just right away bite it at the butt, because I don't want to deal with that, in a sense that people that starts businesses is because they already have experience in the thing that they want to do. Like it's not like I randomly with no experience gonna start business. Like I said before, like I made a lot of money running my own martial arts school, and people are like, oh, it's a business which you can make a lot of money. I got injured, so I quit. But I had 10 years of experience before I opened the doors, and that's why my business literally within a year was already making profit. It's not like I just randomly decided to do something. And so what people have to understand, if you're looking to do freelancing, you got to be good at the thing that you're trying to sell first. And if you have no experience, it's going to be like fighting like uphill battle the whole time. And you have a bunch of people saying hello. Let me like slide back. And I just want to say hi. You guys are awesome and really feel inspired by your conversation. Well, thank you. Jess, one of my friends who did 8 months in prison for a drug offense, was able to land a job as a full stack developer. He's a badass at what he does.
That's great.
Listen, anybody could change their life if the right motivation is there. Mohammed says, hey guys, hey Paul, hey Wally. Jose Fan says, besides talking about your journey, you can talk about your setbacks, what you did to overcome them. Yeah, that's a great content for your channel, Wally. I think this is basically what you need to do, start a channel. I mean, it takes time. It's a grind. and then
I'm
it'll make
heavily
us.
considering it. So when, eventually when I have children and my future generations,
Yep.
hopefully YouTube is still up or wherever's still up, they can take a look back and be like, hey, that's our great grandfather, just talking about, his life. So
Exactly.
yeah, I'll consider it. I'll definitely consider it. Yeah,
And then
it's been
I don't
quite a
know if this
journey.
is a question for both of us. And again, if you're not comfortable, you don't have to answer it. What is your salary range for your first job versus your second and third job? I'll talk about mine first. Well, you could decide if this is something you want to share. My first development job, like a real dev job where I did React development, was $13.75 an hour. It was in the midst of COVID, and I was like, $13.75. I can't even pay my bills. Luckily, I had some savings, but I'm like, I am like more interested in the experience I'm gonna get from having that job than the actual paycheck. I worked there for a year and a half, and my next job was the job that I have now, is making 40 bucks an hour. And so that's about 80 grand a year. And my next job, I'm hoping is gonna be more than 80, so closer to 90 to 100, but we'll see. But I mean, it took a long time for me to get there. Don't think, guys, I'm trying to tell you was easy. It was a journey. And if you want to share your experience, perfectly fine.
Paul, it will be. It'll definitely be over 100 for sure. There's not a doubt in my mind. Um, so I don't mind sharing. I think actually more people should be sharing,
Yeah,
even in
feel
companies. Like
expectations.
I don't see a problem with it. If anything, it's just I think if everybody starts sharing, then there's gonna be a huge renegotiating phase of every company on the planet, which might not be a bad thing.
Yep,
Um, so I started at this job making 55,
this is amazing. Yeah,
and
it's
that's
great.
and that's like I have a vision board, what is a mood board thing, and it's like
Yep.
2021. My goal was 60, and here's the thing: I started that in January, and it's like, I shot for the moon,
Yep.
and I hit a star right under the moon, but that's
Right.
fine
Yeah,
because either
exactly.
way, I was on the ground on planet Earth, and if I wouldn't have shot for the moon, I would have never hit in the star. So
Yeah.
for me, that's perfect. My next job for sure is going to be somewhere in the 70 to 90
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, for sure. For
And,
sure.
and and that's the
100%.
way it's going to be. And
Yep.
again, shoot for the moon. You'll hit it somewhere.
But what I like I said, again, all credit to Joe because he's the only one that talks about it. And when other people talk about it, I'm like, they got it from Joe. But he's the one who talks about, dude, if you're starting out, like you said earlier in the video, if you have no experience, if you haven't done anything, you're coming from like, some sort of contractor role where you did construction, it's like, you're not going to get a job with Google. You're not going to get there's so many jobs. They might not be called specifically web development, but they have web development in it, like email, web development, content, like whatever. There's so many jobs out there.
Hmm.
And if you really want to get into the field and you don't want to wait, like there's nothing wrong taking that route. You're making more money as an email developer than I did as a React developer, which is insane because
Whoa.
my first job was 13 bucks an hour. Like, do the math. It's less, like, I don't even think it's $27,000 a year. That's like, literally I just paid rent and that's it.
Man.
And so
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that, there's lots of different paths, but go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, it's all good. No worries, man. I think it really, like, it boils down to a person's situation, like, because if there was a better opportunity for you to make more, you would have taken that. But at the time, you're like, I gotta pay the rent. Some things have to be done, and okay, and this is a first job. I gotta do this, and I'm gonna make that sacrifice and make that investment in myself. Because really, at the end of the day, like, as long as the money can keep you alive and
Yeah.
paying the bills, then at the end of the day, you're investing in yourself because you're gonna do
100%.
better.
Yep.
So maybe I can add this to my story when I create my YouTube channel. But I live with my parents.
Yeah.
I've, like, my 20s mostly, except for like 2-ish years, I live with my parents, and literally my 20s have been just finding out what I'm gonna do or what I want to do. Luckily I've had the blessing and the privilege of being in a middle class family where, you know, I wasn't forced to work. It's not like, hey, we can't pay the, you know. So I definitely took my time and tried a variety of different things and, you know, had to learn a whole bunch of different things and see what I actually like and what is actually going to hit. And
Yeah.
when I ran into coding, it just hit like that. I got a job and I was like, oh, this is great. Like, and I actually ran into an old friend of mine, and it's like, you know, she just graduated from her, I think she got a master's. She became a psychiatrist.
Nice.
And I'm like, you know, I was super pumped because I just got my job a couple days ago. And I'm like, yo, like, that's great. You graduated. I just got my first job in web development and and I'm making this much now. And she's like, you're making that much? So I spent 10 years in school and you're almost making more than me. And I'm
Yeah,
like, what?
it's
I'm
insane.
almost making more than you. What the hell?
Yeah, psychologist
And you
is
got all
tough
this debt.
profession.
And it's like, you know, I think if anyone wants to make over 100K, they can do that in like a year, 2 years, versus like other people out here are really have it different.
Yeah, it's hard.
People are
It's hard.
living different stories out here. So honestly, anybody who's watching this right now, in the present or in the future, like, you're in the right spot if you
Yeah.
want to really change your life. Mhm.
The crazy thing, it's like, even if you make 80, like, a lot of people don't understand what the average is in the country in terms of income.
They
And
don't.
so when I go on Instagram, everybody on Instagram is making $1 million. And then I go on the
Right.
census and I'm like, you're not making that money because this many people in US that make that much money and you're not one of them. And this is why I hate, like, people try to like lie and all this other stuff, kind of make you feel like they're better than you or something. But the truth is, it's like, this is a field where, like, obviously if you have a CS degree, it helps. But if you don't, you could still get up there. And even if you make 80,000, 90,000, it's still better than most people. And Afrikawi says, Paul, how old is too old for learning to code? And I think there's no limit. Like, yeah, it's hard. Don't get me wrong. Learning to code, the older you are, and there is a thing like ageism, even though people don't believe me, it does exist. But it's still possible, and there are many, many opportunities, especially if you try to be creative on how to get your job. And like, you got it with email, you know, creation. And but there's so many companies where you're able to start if you look hard enough, where it's not like job at Google or a job that, but it is relevant to coding, and you could get your foot in the door. And like you were saying earlier, now you have recruiters calling you every day. So funniest thing is, I have a friend who's a recruiter, and this is what she said to me. And this is like the truth that no recruiter would ever tell you. They will never tell you this. I know this 100%. They'll just ghost you, but they'll never tell you this. This is what she says. The first, but she's also a really good recruiter. She's like one of the good ones. But this is what she said to me. The first place a recruiter would look to see if you're the right fit is if you are already employed in the field. So if you're already working as a
100%.
developer, you're their best customer because they know you're hireable. So whatever job they get you next, they're able to get their cut, they make you happy, but it's just win-win all around. But if you don't have a job or don't have an experience, then like most recruiters, they won't even help you because it's a big risk that they're taking. I still think there's plenty of good recruiters that will help new hires to find jobs, but just know that it is hard and tough. But I was just like blown away. I was like, my God, this industry is insane.
Yeah,
question?
100%. I mean, they're paid literally by a client to vet people.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
okay, this is garbage. This person doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, I looked at their portfolio. They don't know anything. Oh, these people, they might know what you're looking for. Here you go, interview them.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. So, quick question: are APIs important in web development? Yes, 100%. If you're looking to get a job, even as a front end, you might not have to be able to create your own API, but you definitely should know how to consume it and how to use it and how to write asynchronous JavaScript to handle the requests that you're making and being familiar with, you know, the basics. And then Jose says, for you, Wally Codes, how many projects did you do before you felt confident enough to start applying for jobs?
So okay, so I was specifically going for email developer, and my understanding, I literally followed what Joe said. I created a notepad text document, and like I had a list of things. So it was like, I need to have a transactional email, a promotional email. I threw like 2 promotional emails there just because it was the easiest thing. Um, and then a newsletter email. So here I'm gonna give you guys a little secret. Not a lot of people implement this, but the people that I've told this to, it's worked wonders for them. So I knew I had to make these emails, so I'm like, okay, where am I gonna get these emails? Like example emails. So I created a just a random Gmail account, and what I did is I went around subscribing to
There you go.
um every newsletter on the planet, whether it was like, Vox or the Herald, Miami Herald, or Washington Post. I got those emails. Then cruise lines like Carnival, Norwegian,
There you
anywhere,
go.
got those in. Best Buy, Michaels, JC Penney, then the online stores wherever. And next thing I knew, I had like 100 different emails that I can literally see what modern HTML email development looked like. And then I'm like, all right, my projects need to look like this. And I just remade, I think I remade about 4 to 5 emails, and I had 2 landing pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another like place. It's just making landing pages for people. There's so many businesses that don't need a website. They literally just need a landing page to promote their
Mm-hmm.
service, and that's another way
Mm-hmm.
to get into it. And let's see here. This is another question people ask me a lot. What are your thoughts on Upwork? I personally tried it, and I don't do any of it because once I did my research, believe it or not, average hourly income, and that's average on Upwork, is 15 bucks an hour. And the most some people make is maybe 50 bucks an hour, but that's like the 1% of the 1%. The problem with Upwork is that it's global market, and so there's plenty of places like India where cost of living is different, so they could get away charging 5-6 bucks an hour for the same thing that you want to charge 30 bucks an hour. They're always going to win out those contracts. And so to me, Upwork is raced to the bottom. It's not Upwork's fault. It's just there's plenty of people who live in countries where the economy is different, so they're able to basically charge less and live better than most people live in their country. So Upwork for me, like as a US person, I would never do it. Like, and I don't think it's worth my time. And again, this is my opinion. But if you live in a country that is not US, where maybe cost of living is lower, it could be it could be a thing for you, just not in US. For me, it's not something that makes sense. And yeah, so.
Uh, yeah, I have my 2 cents about it. I'm I I'm probably never ever gonna get on Upwork or Fiverr personally. I don't. For me, it's not a viable source of income. I don't want any part of that type of world personally. Now, if I'm offering a very very niche, unique service where I can get paid what I'm worth, sure, why not? Or maybe if I have an agency one day and I can post the agency services on there, why not? But I do think it's oversaturated, and there are even people in South America. There's some people making a killing on there. By all means, hey, if you want to get on Fiverr and Upwork and you don't have any other means, go for it. Go for it. But for me in my life, that's not going to be an avenue for me.
Yeah.
And that's a conscious decision that I've made for myself.
Yeah. And Alejandro says here in Colombia, people who make 7 bucks an hour are rich.
Yeah.
And
I have a friend that his job went remote, and he's from he grew up in Colombia. He moved back to Colombia. He lives in a penthouse,
oh
his
my God.
he has a whole bunch of Colombian girlies out there, just living his best life. So hey, some people it works.
Yeah, but you gotta figure out if that makes sense in your personal life. But yeah, if you're living in another country, 100% like Upwork may make sense to you. But if you're living in US, I can't compete with the low pricing on it. And like be able to pay rent and do stuff like that. And Arturo
The
says
silver
hello.
lining.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
excuse me. Sorry.
Go ahead.
The
Go ahead.
silver lining is that there's a language barrier there,
That's true.
where that's where some people seek people in the USA specifically to work, or
Yes.
whatever country. There could be
Yep.
a language barrier between,
That's
I don't
true.
know, Russia and from wherever, or the Ukraine, or I don't know.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah. No, it's
there's
hundred
hope.
percent, 100% true. What I tell people, if you could make it on Upwork, to me that means you have an entrepreneurial mindset. So then I would say, don't go on Upwork. Get a bunch of Facebook ads, create a landing page, and sell your own services. And you're gonna be able to charge more money. But like sometimes I feel people think maybe Upwork is easier, and I think anything freelancing or your own business or do your own thing, it's way harder than getting a job. I ran a business for a while. I decided that the point in my life where I am, I just want to show up to work, do my job, enjoy it, go home and get paid, and not worry about any of that other stuff. That's kind of where I am right now, you know.
Hey,
So
that makes sense for a lot of people, and for some people it doesn't.
yeah, no,
My
100%.
my idea is you know, I'm 30. I'm turning 31 this month. Happy birthday to me.
Yeah, happy birthday,
But
baby.
thank you. Scorpios rule.
There you go.
But I want to set myself up with skills that have a challenging barrier to get into, so it's not overly saturated, right?
Yep.
And there is, if you look up on any of these job application sites, it's like junior web developer, and it's like, 100 and something applicants,
Right.
and then you look at the senior developer jobs, and it's like, there's no numbers there. So there will be a market in the future for my skills as they grow, no matter what, right? And for the barrier of entry for someone to get to that level, the amount of learning that they have to do in itself will put me in a position where I can literally pivot to wherever I want. Like you
Yeah.
said before, Paul, you can live anywhere on the planet. So that's
Yeah.
100% where I'm at, and that's why I've gone the what's the word for it? The traditional way of being employed,
Yeah.
at least right now.
Yeah. No, it's good. So what are your plans like moving forward? I know you're learning JavaScript. Is there a specific JavaScript framework you want to learn after that, or what is your path with doing that?
Okay, so great question. So HTML, CSS must-haves. JavaScript is the next behemoth on the line, and then after that, React. After that, there's going to be an interplay there, because I do see really large opportunities in Shopify.
Yeah, 100%.
There's Shopify and there's Square.
Yeah.
And they're coming out with, it's already out. They have themes, again, these digital products. Like it's a numbers game. So
Yep.
if I can dedicate my time to make a couple themes, a couple digital products, put them up on Etsy, put them up here, there, over there, and let those things work for me and be out there
Yep.
while I'm sleeping and make
Yep.
those sales. Hey, you know what? It could be $50 a month, and you know
Yep.
what? That'll pay 2 good dinners. Like
Yep.
two. I love chicken tikka masala, man. Those are 2 chicken tikka masalas I don't have to pay for, at least,
Exactly.
right? And that in itself is beautiful. So, like, definitely I'm veering towards Shopify. Also, another thing that'll be really valuable to anybody listening, the barrier to entry in Shopify development is pretty low on its own, because when you go to your traditional tech company, it's like, hey, I know JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Sass, a little bit of Redux, a little bit of TypeScript. They might just be like, hey, look, boom, here's the algorithm, here's reverse the binary tree,
Right.
things that you won't necessarily be using day to day. But these Shopify advertisement agencies, they just want to know that you can do the work. So it's
Exactly.
like, where do I want my career? Like for me, it's like the simpler the process. I hate I dislike, heavily dislike these rounds of
Yeah, of
interviews. It's so
interviews. Yeah, it's gotta
annoying.
be insane.
Like it's a waste of
Frustrating.
time for everybody involved. Like it should be 2, maybe 3 interviews, like max. That's it.
Yeah.
But these horrendous stories of like 8 rounds of for what? Oh man. It's like
Yeah.
it's like they're doing a psychological evaluation on you, like, oh, does this person get along with this person and that, like it's insane. But I digress. I it's like I got my foot in the door with email development, and my job is not mind bending like other people's jobs.
Yep.
So I have enough energy to after work for 2-ish to
do stuff,
3
relax,
hours.
yep.
I can push myself and continue learning things and keep on reinforcing those skills that I'm creating for myself, creating for myself. And the path is veering towards a mixture of employment, getting that salary, but at the same time building up that passive income,
Yep. Which
right?
is, yeah,
And
smart.
so that, like, if I'm getting that 80 over here, that 80K a year over here,
Yeah.
I can get that anywhere from 5 to who knows how much over here,
Yep.
right? So definitely JavaScript, React, Liquid, Shopify, all that stuff.
Are
And
they
I
using
probably want to get
Ruby?
it.
I don't follow Shopify too much. Are they using Ruby on their, like, for their projects, or what are they using?
My understanding is that there's two veins that someone can take on that, where
Yep.
and one of them is a theme development.
Yep.
So it's like you're using my understanding is you're using a little bit of JavaScript, but mostly Liquid.
Yeah.
It's a sort of I think it's a templating framework.
Yep.
But and then there's another path, which is the app development, where I don't think you need to know Ruby. I think it's more just JavaScript and let's see.
Yeah, so I think
Node.
Liquid is an open source template language created by Shopify and written in Ruby. So it allows you to hook up
Okay.
use of that function. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
There you go. And
Yeah,
creating apps, it's just like WordPress. It's the new
Yeah,
WordPress. It's the
yeah.
new wave. They're gonna be apps, the same apps that are on WordPress. People are just gonna be like, oh, let me translate that into Shopify,
Yeah,
and they're gonna
no,
make a killing.
I think for sure
Mhm.
there's a lot of future in it. And again, there's so much opportunities. And this is kind of like when I say, I know we talk about, getting a job. It's hard, it's difficult. But at the same time, there's so many paths within web development that don't have to be the traditional route. And like you were saying, Shopify is a little bit easier to get into. Doing email development or working for a marketing company that also happens to provide web design services is easier to get into than a company where they do more like web app type of applications, where, and so there's plenty of opportunities. The one thing I would say is that, like, spend the time, learn all the different possibilities you have in your area and apply to everything, and I think that's what I like starting to realize here, is that, like, I could have had a job way sooner if I was able to open my mind just a little bit and be like, okay, maybe you're not going to get this React developer job, but this HTML and CSS, email or content management with WordPress or whatever, and I would have gotten to the door much quicker. And a lot of those jobs, they pay like 45 to 55 easy, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of like a nice way to get your foot in the door while keep learning and make money.
Yeah, I'll quickly share a little mini story how I actually got my job. So, I when I had the interview with the CMO, he told me, hey, like, just so you understand, you're not going to be coding 24/7 in this role. I'd say it's about more like 10, maybe 15% coding, and the rest is pretty straightforward. You're using an ESP, it's drag and drop, but sometimes you're going to have to hard code. And he's like, you have a problem with that? And I'm like, no. I'm like, wait, hold on. A remote job, 55K, just starting, like foot in the door, first job, fresh. And he's like, well, the reason why I'm considering you for this position is the last person, when they worked for like 2 days, and once they found out they weren't coding all the time, they decided to leave. So I'm like, what type of? I mean, I guess like some people just want to feel like I'm a coder, I'm coding.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. There's all sorts of people in this world, but me, I'm just like humble. I'm like, dude, I live with my parents. I'm stacking right now. I'm building a career. Like, I'm gonna move out. I'm gonna be the first millionaire in my family. Like, this is gonna be great. My parents are immigrants. Like, I'll do it. I'll do it. I know what hard work is. I have the scars to prove it.
yeah,
Like I'm in air conditioning, coding at home, or maybe not coding. Great.
yeah.
That next job
Exactly.
will be better. I don't, dude. I don't mind. So
Yeah,
there you
and
go.
like to say, like, I mean, like some people be like, oh, I don't have the luxury of living at home. I have to take care of kids. Yeah, everybody's gonna have like their life. Everybody has their baggage per se that we all have to deal with. So, like, if you tell me a sub story, let's say, like, you don't have to tell me. I have my own, and I know that a lot of people have their own. But the point is if you're looking to switch careers, just focus on the process and just listen to what people who have did the same thing, change careers in your age group and do what they do, so you could, get the job you want and just go through the process, like, because you're gonna get there. It's just not as easy as some of these like people on YouTube make it out to be.
Yeah.
There's so many channels where it's like, if for every quote that I heard, like, do Python 10-week course and make 300,000 a year, if I ever had like a penny for every time I heard that, I would have like a million pennies at this point. It's just so much crap out there.
They're
Like,
serving the Kool-Aid. And
exactly.
it's
They're
really,
serving
really
Kool-Aid.
red.
Exactly. And Arthur, he says, working at a company might be easier, but entry step to get into 9 to 5 is higher, 100%. And you, Paul, say it's harder to have a business, but the thing is that you may get away from low coding skills while making money doing basic website. And one thing I would say to you, Arthur, is like, how are you gonna sell your services, and can you guarantee that you're gonna sell enough jobs to be able to pay your bills? That's my biggest concern with being self-employed. The person who's responsible to getting clients is you, and if you can't get clients comfortably to get enough money to build simple website, then you're not going to be able to pay your bills. That's like my only harping thing. And then with his opinion on Shopify, you don't need to know Ruby, but you need to have Ruby installed. Yeah, that's cool. I use Liquid. Like one time I just went through their basic Shopify template to kind of see what it's all about. Yeah, I mean, but the point is there's a lot of stuff. Like, a lot of people hate on PHP. PHP is great. There's plenty of jobs available in PHP. I started with PHP and WordPress. I still, to this day, maybe not a good one, but I could build a theme from scratch using PHP. Not something that I do anymore because I'm on team React right now for the rest of my life until something else exciting happens with JavaScript world. Like, I was actually thinking eventually doing some sort of AR like stuff, like augmented reality or VR stuff. I did it for fun in Unity and C#, but I stopped because I'm like, dude, you get paid to write JavaScript. Why don't you become the best JavaScript person you can be?
There we go. 100%.
So, before we go, I want to thank everybody who was on the stream. I want to thank you, Ali, for coming in on a short notice. It was an amazing story. We need more conversations like this one. The regular folks who are in the process, because I think those are the best places to find these nuggets that actually help you make a change. And if you guys showing up late, this will always be recorded. You can watch it later. And while he comes from, a lot of his stuff came from Coding Phase. And the reason I say this is because a lot of people give Coding Phase hate sometimes, which I don't understand. He's an awesome guy, gives some of the realest advice on the net. Yeah, he could be exuberant sometimes, or whatever the word is, because he's a personality. You know what I'm saying? But
Exactly.
he gives really good advice. And, you know, he talks about non-traditional ways that even sometimes I forget about, and I don't talk about enough, how to break into the field where it could be easier, like to get started with, where maybe instead of searching for a job for 2 years, you could do something different because before you didn't know about it, heard it on Coding Phase, and you're like, oh man, I never thought about doing this. And all of a sudden next month you have a job. I think this is amazing. And Grace says, thank you, Paul. This has been a good live stream. And I would like to extend it, Wally, to you. Thank you, because this stream was okay. And then you came on and then it became amazing. So it's fantastic. So any parting wisdom before we end this? If you had to say one thing to people starting out, what would that be?
Work backwards from the vision of where you're going to be in the future, stay consistent, and never give up.
100%. And that's kind of what we started the stream with. Know what that is for you so you could have a roadmap. So I like how you tied everything together. Well, to all our viewers, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I know it's too late to ask you guys to smash the like button at the end of the stream, but at least smash it for our guests and for your awesome questions. And again, thank you so much. We do this stream every Tuesday and Saturday, 7 p.m. Central Time. And I'm also a co-host on Coding Addicts channel Monday Pacific Time. But with that being said, thank you all for